financed GM shutting down 4 plants in this country, putting 21,000 people out of work, and then bringing in tens of thousands of new vehicles from overseas, like they plan to do over the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, you know, tax money should not go to doing something like that, and so we got to fix that. The other thing we need to do is have some policies that allow consumers, if they have a job, to get access to credit, and to have incentives to get into the auto showroom. And we can do that in a couple of ways. How many of you have heard of a cash for clunkers proposal? Okay, a couple people. That's if you trade in your old vehicle and you buy a new one, you'll get a tax credit from the federal government. In fact, a pretty sizable one. They've done this in they've done this in Germany. They've done this in Italy, and it's boosted auto sales by 40%. It's done wonders, and it would do the same thing here. And we're saying that if you're going to do a cash for clunkers, the new automobile that you should do should have a lot of domestic content in it. So it should be made by one of the domestic automakers here, and I think that's important. The other thing we need to do is get these Wall Street banks to get credit flowing to consumers again, so that people who are qualified can get loans, and that so auto dealerships can get loans too. None of them can get loans now for their floor plans. They have to. Most people probably don't know this, but they have to essentially, you know, get a loan to finance every car they have on the auto showroom floor. It's called a floor plan inventory loan, and they're having problems getting those because, you know, the banks think that they might go under, but they need access to that kind of credit too. We also need to have the government invest a little bit in research and development. In every country that has successfully launched a clean energy vehicle, you know, either a hybrid or an electric car or an alternative fuel car, there's been help with government help with research through some modest investments in innovation and research and development, and helping to develop a supply chain for that. We don't do that here. I mean, the last administration could care less where things were made. So as a result, you know, the first kind of battery car that one of the big three is going to make, guess where they're sourcing the battery from? Anyone want to guess?
Probably China.
Close, Korea, but Asia, because there is close industry government cooperation there to get this stuff done. I mean, we need the government to be on the side of our manufacturers, and you know, and that's something very tangible that can be done. And there's a return on investment. I mean, if they're going to invest in the research and development, and we're going to make it here, they're going to support more jobs, we're going to get that money back in taxes in a matter of no time. We need to do a couple of other things. I talked about health care. We obviously need health care reform because it's important that everyone have access to affordable coverage. It's also important to know that we can't afford in domestic manufacturing to have individual companies basically competing against countries, which is what you end up with, because we're the only industrialized country that has a healthcare system set up the way it does, that puts the majority of the burden for financing healthcare on employers. It's exceptionally difficult to do that. There are a number of proposals about how to do this otherwise, but we got to do that. Otherwise, we're going to end up back here in 5 years talking about the same thing. The last thing we need to do is fix our trade policy, and we need to follow 2 rules on trade. One is, if you want to sell it here, make it here. Make the car here. That's one. The second one is that if you want to import the car here, and some people want that choice, you got to give us access to your market. You got to give us access to your market in an equal way. And we simply don't have that with China, with Japan, with Korea, with other large auto countries. And you know, we're not Uncle Sam, we're Uncle Sucker. You know, we're like, bring in the autos, we'll deal with this later. And this is what we end up with. We end up with, you know, 1 out of every 4 manufacturing jobs disappearing in Indiana since the year 2000. We end up with, you know, almost 4 million manufacturing jobs having disappeared in this country. And we end up with an auto sector in crisis. We end up with an unemployment rate of 8.9%. We end up with health care benefits and pension benefits at stake because of this. And we end up with companies teetering on bankruptcy.